Stupidity isn't just about someone being unintelligent. It's something way more complicated and honestly scarier. According to Bonhoeffer, a person can be highly educated or brilliant and still fall into a kind of social and moral fog that makes them behave in harmful, mindless ways. It's less about IQ and more about how we as people switch off our ability to think critically, especially in groups or under pressure. The wild part is that this kind of stupidity doesn't just make people clueless, it turns them into tools for spreading damage. People can start spreading ideas, following harmful movements, or supporting injustices, all while thinking they're doing something right. And once someone is caught up in that mindset, logic and reasoning usually don't work. That's what makes it terrifying. Bonhoeffer wasn't just some guy with opinions. He was a legit theologian and pastor who put everything on the line to stand against Hitler. He came from a super intellectual family and initially believed you could fight ignorance with education and reason. But watching Germany fall apart during the Nazi rise changed his thinking in a big way. Being in prison gave Bonhoeffer a front row seat to how frightening stupidity could become when it spreads across a society. He saw how people stopped thinking for themselves and handed over their judgment to dangerous leaders. His famous line, "Against stupidity, we are defenseless." This hits hard because he truly believed it was one of the greatest threats to humanity. Bonhoeffer didn't think stupidity was about being dumb. He saw it as a kind of willful ignorance, like when people just repeat slogans instead of thinking critically or blindly follow authority without questioning anything. It's more about moral laziness than mental ability. What makes it worse is that this kind of stupidity actually thinks it's doing something good. You can't just hit people with facts and expect them to change their minds. In fact, the more you push, the more they dig in. That's why it's so dangerous. It's stubborn, self-assured, and basically immune to reason. There's actual science backing up his ideas. Remember the Milgram experiment? People kept shocking strangers just because a guy in a lab coat told them to. That's not about being evil. It's about surrendering moral responsibility under authority. Then there's cognitive dissonance, which explains why we avoid info that messes with our beliefs. Add in the Ash conformity studies, where people knowingly agreed with the wrong answer just to fit in, and it becomes clear. We're wired to go along with the crowd, even when it's wrong. This stuff shows that Bonhoeffer wasn't just being dramatic. He was onto something real. It's not just individual brain glitches. Stupidity is baked into the system. Politicians use catchy slogans instead of real solutions, and the media thrives on outrage instead of accuracy. Social media algorithms feed us what we already agree with, turning our screens into echo chambers. Economic pressure doesn't help either. When people are overloaded with stress, debt, and constant information, they start cutting corners mentally just to cope. That's how rational ignorance happens. It's easier not to care than to try and make sense of it all. And then there's tech. Social platforms reward outrage and simplify complexity, making it even harder to think clearly. Bonhoeffer nailed it when he said stupidity isn't just personal, it's social. People may think clearly alone, but once they're part of a group, things get weird. Groupthink kicks in, and suddenly, otherwise smart individuals stop questioning what's going on. Movements, mobs, even well-meaning communities can make people shut off their moral radar. There's something about being in a group that makes people feel less responsible for their actions. That's where stupidity thrives, where no one wants to be the one who rocks the boat or says, "Wait, is this right?" History is packed with proof that stupidity isn't rare, it's reoccurring. In Nazi Germany, educated professionals supported atrocities they probably wouldn't have on their own. In the Salem witch trials, religious fervor outpowered reason, and people died over accusations that made no sense. Fast forward to the Red Scare, where fear of communism led to censorship and paranoia. Even during COVID-19, we saw doctors and scientists, people trained to deal in facts, spread misinformation under stress or social pressure. When stupidity takes hold, logic and ethics often go out the window. When people surrender their ability to think, it doesn't just hurt them, it opens the door to serious societal harm. Dehumanization becomes easy, and propaganda flows like water. All it takes is the right slogan, the right pressure, and suddenly people are cheering things they once resisted. This kind of stupidity makes it possible for rulers with an iron fist to sneak in. No need for brute force when you've got citizens willingly giving up their minds. That's why Bonhoeffer saw it as such a threat. It erodes the very foundation of freedom and human dignity. Fighting stupidity starts with individual effort. That means staying humble, questioning your beliefs, and being willing to say, I don't know. Engaging with people who think differently, slowing down before you react online. Those aren't just good habits, they're forms of resistance. But it's not all on individuals. The system needs to change too. Transparent algorithms, media literacy, and platforms that reward thoughtful content instead of rage clicks would help a lot. Even things like economic justice play a role, because when people aren't constantly stressed, they can actually think. Bonhoeffer's legacy isn't just about what he said, it's about how he lived. He stood up when it was risky, spoke out when it was unpopular, and never traded truth for comfort. His question, who stands fast, is still painfully relevant today. In a world that rewards snap judgments and echo chambers, choosing curiosity over certainty is a bold move. Bonhoeffer challenges us to think deliberately, speak honestly, and stay grounded in truth, even when it costs something. That's the real fight against stupidity. This isn't just a history lesson, it's a call to check yourself. When's the last time you seriously considered the best arguments against your beliefs? Doing that doesn't make you weak, it makes you intellectually honest. Even more powerful, sharing that mindset with others. It's not about forcing people to agree with you, it's about encouraging everyone to think deeply, ask better questions, and stay open to being wrong. That's the kind of ripple effect that actually makes a difference. In the end, the world benefits from us not thinking too hard. It's easier to sell, manipulate, and control when people are mentally checked out. That's why critical thinking isn't just a skill, it's a form of rebellion. Bonhoeffer's message is clear. Never stop thinking. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and stay alert. Intellectual freedom isn't free. It takes constant effort. But if we don't fight for it, we'll lose it even without noticing.